I'd like to remind you to please turn off or silence all cell phones. And just a quick announcement that we are being broadcast on Comcast Cable, Channel 23 on Saturday, October 20th at 7 p.m. And again, it will air on Tuesday, October 23rd at 11 a.m. At this time, I would like to invite everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for coming, everybody. I'm Janice Reed, Co-President Citywide PTO. This is Jen Wilkie, Co-President Citywide PTO. I'd like to take a moment and just introduce to you the ladies and gentlemen who have graciously consented to come out tonight, who are on the stage. And just to make it easy, I'm just going to start and go right down the line here. Joe Scazafaza, Irving Fox, Dr. Louis Alasco, Judy Coco, Board of Ed candidates, His Honor Mayor Mark Boughton, Helena Abrantes, John McGowan, mayoral candidates. The other table is Jeffrey Heil, Gladys Cooper, and Rich Janelli, Board of Education candidates. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to come here and join us this evening. It's at this time, I'd just like to remind everybody that Citywide PTO Council is a nonpartisan and will not endorse any candidate. It does promote communication and sharing of resources with the school community, as well as maintain a liaison with organizations that affect the schools, such as the Board of Education, the Common Council, and the Mayor, as well as other groups. And it is my pleasure at this time to introduce Dr. Sal Pasquarella, Superintendent, Danbury Public Schools, to say a few words. Dr. Pasquarella.
Thank you, Dennis. Good evening. I'm very pleased to be here. Being in education for 37 years, I think there is no more important topic than education. I thank all of you for putting yourself through this. I know it's very difficult. And on behalf of the children, I do thank you. Real quick, there's a Chinese proverb about, maybe we live in interesting times. I'm going to say this, as a board member and a politician, these are challenging times. With the confluence, sounds like the perfect storm that's going to hit us here. We have a lot of mandates coming down from the federal government. There are a lot of state mandates happening here. We have a growth issue in Danbury. We have an accountability issue in Danbury. We have a restructuring of high schools from the commissioner's office. They've set a new Department of Accountability. There's so many things to do here. I'm just glad we're going to have those of you committed to do this to help us through these times. As I look at what you do, I look at the long and we have a lot of frustrating times. The pay isn't very much, I know that, at least for board members. You seldom get any positive accolades, and you kind of wonder why you're doing it. And just think about this. Education is a promise. Horace Mann said something like schools are mankind's greatest invention. You offer the promise to our youngsters here in this school system and in town. It's through your dedication and commitment that you'll level what we call the playing field. Our board has worked in 4 areas: to set a vision, to work with the community, creating a structure to make sure that happens, have an accountability piece that reports back to the community to talk about what we do, and then being an advocate for kids, making sure that the resources are there for them, making sure that they're getting the best possible education, and they're prepared to return back to Danbury and add to the value of Danbury, which is a wonderful place, you would all agree with me, to live. So thank you for doing this. I wish you well, and I thank the PTO for doing it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Sal. I wanted to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I just want to explain to those of you who have not been to this before Meet the Candidates Night is something that the citywide PTO does every 2 years. They've been doing it for about 15 years. We're going to begin with the mayoral candidates. We'll give each candidate a chance to give a quick introduction about themselves and their education platform, and then we'll be asking each of the mayoral candidates a couple of questions regarding some of the issues that are very prominent here in Danbury. So it is my pleasure at this time to ask Mayor Mark Boughton to please take the microphone and give us an introduction.
Can you hear me now? I'm good? Okay. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here this evening with the citywide PTO. Just to give you a quick second about my background, I was born and raised in the city of Danbury. I was educated in Danbury Public Schools. I graduated from Danbury High School. I have a bachelor's of science degree in history with a minor in education from Central Connecticut State University, and I have a master's in educational psychology from Western Connecticut State University. For most of my adult life, I've been a teacher working at Danbury High School in the Danbury Public School system, and I'm very proud of that and very proud and honored to work with some of the best professionals that I've ever worked with. In addition to that, I think tonight's an important night because discussing the future of education in Danbury is important to the quality of life of our children. It's also important to the quality of life, indeed, of our city. And frankly, we all win when we invest in our children. And invest in our children we have. We are completing our first phase of renovations and construction on new schools. These projects, called 21st Century Schools, comprise the largest capital investment in children in the history of our city. We're building we completed one elementary school, building another elementary school, as well as renovations to both middle schools, including the room that you're sitting in here tonight. We're also working on a new Head Start center so that we can move 10 of our classrooms, free up 10 of our classrooms in the public school system. In addition to that, we're looking at relocating our school readiness centers, so we'll free up an additional 2 more classrooms. We've also rebuilt approximately 90% of the playscapes at each of our elementary schools, and the total investment that we've already put in is roughly $80 million in new facilities and equipment. But investment in bricks and mortar is only one thing that you can do. My administration has also invested in programming and in staff. We've expanded all-day kindergarten. We've decreased class sizes and added new programming at Danbury High School. Each year, I have proposed record budgets for our school system to enhance programming. This year alone, our school district received an additional $6.1 million. These are new dollars above and beyond the current budget. And it's clear that we have more to do. Dr. Pasquarella elicited some of the challenges that face us. First and foremost, we need to work at Danbury High School, specifically ADA improvements as well as a sprinkler system. We need to upgrade our technology. We need to develop a long-term strategic vision of where we need our schools in terms of space, custodial services, and capital improvements. That is why this administration commissioned a study called the Savin Report to look at our school facilities in a comprehensive fashion. And once the report is completed, we'll brief our Board of Education, our Common Council, on the future needs of the school system in terms of facilities, capital improvements, and indeed maintenance. Our strategic plan, built as a community, will be a blueprint that we use to determine our needs in the coming decade. We will help our residents buy into that blueprint with any new large funding requests. We also need to continue to expand all-day kindergarten so that each and every child has the option of this program. We need to work to break children into smaller groups through the use of non-traditional programming like the STEM Academy and micro schools. As an educator with 15 years of experience in the Danbury public school system and a master's degree in educational psychology, I am uniquely positioned to work with parents, faculty, Dr. Pasquarella and his team, as well as our Board of Education to develop our long-term strategic vision. I look forward to tonight's discussion, and I thank all of you for coming out here this evening.
Thank you very much, Mayor Boughton. Helena Abrantes, Ms. Abrantes, if you take the microphone, please.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the Citywide PTO Council for hosting this forum. And the mayor and I have only had one debate before the Chamber of Commerce and only one opportunity to discuss our views regarding the important issues facing our city today and in the future, issues like education. Now let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in Portugal. I came to the United States when I was 4 turning 5. I am the product of the ESL program in the Danbury school system. I came here, I went to Morris Street School, I continued on to Rogers Park, this school itself, and I graduated from Danbury High School. I also continued my education. I have a paralegal certificate. I went to the former Danbury Business Institute, which became the Paraprofessional Institute, and that's where I received my paralegal, and I am a paralegal at this moment and also a business owner in Danbury. Both of my children are graduates of Danbury High School. My oldest son is graduating from Fordham University this May and going on to Columbia University for his physics and engineering degree. On the dean's list also, this school has a phenomenal educational system which they provided my children. My youngest son is on a full ROTC scholarship. He was the commander of the ROTC program in Danbury High School, and he is attending the University of New Haven. When he graduates from high school, he will go into the military services and serve for this country, and then come back out and major in criminal justice and work for the CIA or the FBI. That's his goal in the future. The education is one of the most important things in our city. We need a system to promote education. We need everyone to graduate from our school system and go on to continuing professional levels of college and business school and technical school, because without that background, you're not able to succeed in life today, and there are very limited amounts of jobs for students if they don't complete their education. It's a certain responsibility. I graduated from Danbury High School. My husband graduated from Danbury High School. We've been very successful in our life and in our educational field. I also wanted to mention something about, you mentioned the Savin report. It's interesting because I requested that from the city, and I was basically told that it really didn't exist. It was just something, a draft that was proposed, but I do have a copy of it, which a member of the public gave to me. And on there, it talks about different situations that have to be addressed. It did come out in June 2007, and it talks about the crisis of the overpopulation in our school system. The Magnet School is a great school. It's removed students from our elementary school, which were quite tight and getting to the point of overcrowdedness. And also, I would like to implement the type of a program of implementing a charter school, and I would like to do that with the Palace Theater. It's the perfect location to use the Palace Theater for a performing arts facility, and taking students out of the middle school and the high school and taking them to that facility so that they can learn other aspects of education, which many children do go on in the future to that field, and using it also to promote science, and then in the evenings using it for ballets and different types of shows. And I think that would be an astronomical improvement to downtown, and it would be a wonderful and promotional thing for our city in Danbury. I like to see our city in a positive light, not in a negative light like we've seen in the past few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abrantes. And Mr. McGowan, the third candidate for mayor, if you take the mic.
John McGowan from Bethel and Danbury, raised in basically both towns. I would like to thank the administration for putting this on tonight, and I want to apologize in advance. I wasn't given these questions until 5 o'clock this evening, so my answers are going to be rather short, unfortunately. Basically, I'm just a local business person and does not like the way things are going. I'm against big government, whether it be federal, state, or local. I do not believe that the government should have so much control over our kids that the parents do not have any say-so over what happens with them. I'd like to see more homeschooling and tax benefits to the parents that do such. But since we are stuck with a lot of overcrowding in our classes, it is a direct result of the overdevelopment in Danbury. So therefore, why should that be put on the expense of the taxpayers? If you're going to overdevelop the city, well, why not charge developers $10,000, $15,000, or $20,000 per second and third bedroom that goes into a condo or a house, and put that money into escrow to go towards building new schools or paying for new teachers or the extra programs that are needed within the city. Danbury does not have a school on the west side, and it's in desperate need of one. There's a lot of development going over there in Union Carbide Project, which is going to put out more kids that need the space. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we'll get to the questions for the mayoral candidates. It's this part of our program. Jen?
Thank you, Janice. Um, We'll start again with Mayor Boughton. If you would take the microphone, and each of the candidates can answer the same question in succession. If the state does not increase funding, how will you ensure the school district will get the funding it needs to decrease class size, recruit teachers, and increase facility construction and renovation?
Thanks, Jen. First of all, let me just say I'm glad that Mrs. Abrantes agrees with my idea of a Palace Theater school. In fact, it was on my legislative agenda in 2003. Not to be a charter school, because in a charter school, that means the city has to pay for the $20 million in renovations. My idea was to make it a magnet school and make the state pay the $20 million in renovations, and I think that's a much more cost-effective way to get that project done. But beyond that, the question relates to what are we going to do if the state doesn't give us any more money? First of all, I'm not so sure that's necessarily going to happen. Let me just say that I am president of a coalition called the Connecticut Coalition for Justice and Education Funding. That coalition is currently engaged in a lawsuit against the state of Connecticut because they have not adequately funded our schools over the last several years. I was nominated 2 years ago to be president because my peers of 30 other communities and other organizations thought that I would be able to most effectively make that argument to the governor. And success that we did have this year. This year we had a significant increase in state funding, and we gladly took it with the help of our state legislators. Some of them are here in this room. We appreciate it. But I think that lawsuit is going to be critical, because as we go forward, you're going to see that other communities, other states have been successful in prosecuting those kinds of lawsuits to get the state to the table to help us with education funding. In addition to that, I've been successful at finding money where we maybe didn't have money before. Over the years, I proposed to the board a number of different initiatives to save dollars, whether it be through our purchasing requirements, whether it be through our IT departments, whether it be through how we utilize our buildings. All those are sources of revenue and sources of way that we can help offset costs to our schools. In addition, under my administration, each year that I've been mayor, our aggregate total of increases has been about 5.4% over the last 6 years that I've been able to increase the school budget. When you compare that to the last 6 years of the previous administration at 3.4%, I think we've done pretty well. So I've been able to find money by reorganizing and downsized government and shifting dollars over to the Board of Ed. I've been able to hold the state accountable for their lack of accountability in terms of funding schools. In addition to that, I've worked closely with our Board of Ed to maximize each and every resource that we have.
First of all, I'd like to say that it is a constitutional requirement to fund education in the state. And it is very important that we do fund education. And we have to find the funds to move forward and to educate our children. I have spoken to a woman who was involved in a phenomenal program with the mayor down in St. Petersburg, Florida. She's been up here, and her and I sat down and went over a program that they are implementing in St. Petersburg, Florida. And it's called PASS. And what they've done is they've taken a school system that was failing, and they've taken corporations within that town. Mr. McGowan, as you talked about corporations helping to fund more of these programs. And what's happened is those corporations have incorporated themselves into adopting a school system. And they've adopted every single school within that community. And every single school has a following. And what they've done is they've taken the mentor program, they've incorporated into the school system, and they've advanced that program. They've taken it to the next level. They've given promotional programs to the school itself. They've given bonuses to principals. They've given bonuses to teachers for outstanding and academic improvement amongst their students. There were schools that some of their students had D averages, and within 4 years, they brought up the average of those students to an A average. And it hasn't cost the taxpayers any more money than they've already input into the system itself. And those corporations now, if they are not involved, and not just corporations, but any type of business, if they are actually not contributing or not involved with one of the schools, they're looked negatively upon. And it's very important that they do get involved. And you have to remember, it's an asset to these corporations. Because if these corporations are educating our children, they have people that are going to go into that system and work for these corporations one day. And they know that they don't have to go anywhere else to get their staffing. And they have qualified people that have been educated by themselves and the people involved. I know how important school is. I have been adamant with my children while they were in the school system. Education was a priority. No matter what they did, they had to partake in everything. They volunteered. My youngest son graduated with 500 hours of community service because it's not just the part of education, but it's also your involvement in the community and getting everyone involved. As a parent, you are responsible for helping to educate your children, teaching them morally and pushing them to the next level. And I think that's very important, and I will be relentless in going after the state to get funding to educate our school system, because they owe it to us. We are one of the highest paying retail contributors to the tax base in the city, in the state of Connecticut, and we deserve some of that funds back to help pay for our school and implement our programs.
Now, a lot of the problem is class sizes, and by implementing a homeschooling program, obviously the class sizes would decrease because more of the kids would be at home in little neighborhood schools, or just, being taught by the parents of the immediate street that they live on. Financing goes right back to what I said originally about the overdevelopment. Basically, we call it an overdevelopment tax on the developers who are making money off of the housing that's being built within the city. But one of the biggest expenses that the city has and the education system is mandates by the federal government, like the No Child Left Behind Act, which the federal government has zero constitutional authority over the education system, and more of the child's decisions, or more decision-making for the children, should be put in the parents' hands, not in the state hands, not in the federal government's hands, but right here at home. Let the parents decide how to best educate their kids. I agree with some points from both candidates here, and I think they're fantastic. But one thing I do disagree with is the magnet school. For international studies, or they want to put out well-rounded global citizens, we have to start right here at home and teach our kids the Constitution so they know what rights they do and do not have before we start taking into consideration what the United Nations thinks is important for our own kids. Thank you.
Our second mayoral question for this evening, and Mr. Abrantes, we will begin with you. After-school programs for elementary schools are increasing and improving, but there seems to be a need for affordable after-school programming at the middle school level. How can the city at large help create and fund these necessary programs?
Okay. After-school programs are critical for the elementary schools and for the middle schools. I feel that especially for the middle schools, watching my children go through the school system, the middle schools are the critical point in a child's life where you either make them or break them. They make a lot of critical decisions during that time in their life, and they have to have the support and the strength to move forward so that they don't make those negative decisions in their life. I was fortunate because I was able to provide a lot of activities for my children, and I also had care with a family member taking care of my children when they came home from school, but most people don't have that capability or that ability for their children. And it's important and it's available. There is funding through the state for a lot of these programs, and you really have to go after that, and you have to have an individual person who's constantly and relentlessly going after the state looking for those funds. I know that we've received them. When I was on the Common Council with the previous administration, we received tremendous amount of money for after-school programs for our children. Some of them were almost cut. During the time that Mayor Boughton, you were also a representative, we lost some funding for an after-school program through the state, as I remember correctly when I was on the council. It's critical, and we have to really pursue the fact and advise people and let them know that if we don't do something with those children, and also incorporate a community to get together and to organize different programs. I know that the Harambee Center at one point is now being changed and put forward for a lot of students to go in there and have activities available to them. And we just need something to move forward. But we can get the funding. It is available. And through a program like this PASS program that they did implement in Florida, as I mentioned before, that program is perfect because you are taking these corporations, and those individuals from those corporations are not giving a lot of their time. They are giving a certain amount of hours every day, and the employers promote it. And they go in there and they do activities with those students. They'll take out those students. They've even supplied picnics at the end of the year because the program has been so successful and the students have been so successful. And they tutor the students and they move forward, and students need a program like that. And I think this program is outstanding. And if I do become mayor, I would love to present this program to the Board of Ed for them to review and to discuss with an individual like Sarah Lind, Dr. Sarah Lind, who promoted this program down in Florida, because she's a phenomenal person and she has tremendous information about these type of programs. And also, it's a cost saving to our taxpayers.
Now, unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you. Very simple. But what I would do is examine private schools and see what they are doing to fund their programs, both during school and after school. Private schools are able to put out better educated kids at approximately half the price. Now, they've got to be doing something right that the public school system is not doing. And I would like to compare line by line what's going on in our own education department with that of a successful school system. Thank you.
Let me just make one point here. We already have a program that Ms. Abrantes is describing. It's called the Danbury School and Business Collaborative, and their responsibility is to mentor children, to work every day with the children of our city. And many, many corporations participate in that. In fact, their annual auction was several nights ago. But the question had to do with after-school programming, and as somebody who's been an active member of the After School Alliance that looks at after-school programming, I can tell you that you're absolutely right. At the elementary school level, it has been expanding, and there's more opportunities. But what we need to do in terms of our middle school programming is to better tap into the nonprofits and better tap into the programming that's already out there, but young people just don't know about it. Things like Escape to the Arts, or YMCA, or a whole different other group of programs, Harambe was mentioned, that are available to young people in that critical time period between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock, when we know that all the research shows that middle school children are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is doing their homework or maybe hopefully cleaning the rooms. But beyond that, and more importantly, the issue always comes down to transportation. If the programming is in place and we know it's there, we've got to be able to get those kids from the middle schools to the programming. And I think that's something that is a fertile area for the city and the Board of Ed to work with. It's not expensive to run buses in specific areas and specific routes. It's something that we can look at in terms of getting kids access to programming that we already have that's doing just an outstanding job. And it does reach and touch children in a very profound way, whether it be after-school tutoring, whether it be arts, whether it be dance, music, whatever way we can touch kids and bring them into our community is a very positive thing.
With this question, we'd like to start with Mr. McGowan. Over the past 10 years, the school district was granted an average budget increase of approximately 3.8%. Costs have been increasing greater than that amount. How are you going to address this inequity in funding?
Well, I think a good place to start would be addressing those issues that we shouldn't be all that involved in, one of which is the No Child Left Behind Act. It started out in Texas under the Bush when he was governor, and it was failed there, so what does he do? He rewards the rest of the nation with spreading it to the rest of the states. Do whatever we can to get rid of that. The next one would be the expense of English as a second language. English is not the second language in this country. It's the primary language. And it shouldn't be the taxpayer's expense to teach people how to speak English. If you want to come here and you don't know the language, well, learn it at your own expense, not our taxpayers. As far as the actual cost, and I just have to refer back to before with, trying to do whatever I can to raise money with the developers, outside corporations, civic organizations, and whatever works out. Thank you.
During the last 6 years of my administration, and I like to look at this question not from the last 10 years, because I can't own what happened in the previous 4 years before I took office, but in the last 6 years, the average increase has been 5.4%. So not only have we talked the talk in my administration, we've walked the walk in terms of school funding. Compare that to when my opponent was on the council, her average increase was 3.4%. And that's the reason that we have the problems that we have today. Because every administrator, from Tim Connors to Dr. Davis, and I won't hold Dr. Pasquarella in here, but many administrators have said, hey, we're playing catch up for those years when we had 2% increase and 2.5% increase. That's why we don't have textbooks. That's why our technology is lagging. That's why we have capital issues within our buildings and maintenance issues have been deferred. So we've been able to find the money to put in education at record levels. It's always never enough. And that means that a good education necessarily isn't always related to dollars. It's also related to performance. But we've done that by reorganizing government. In City Hall alone, we've eliminated 23 positions. And those salaries, wages, and benefits were shifted over to the Board of Ed so that they can fund competing positions and salaries, wages, and positions on that side of the budget. Why did I do that? Because I believe strongly that having an educated workforce, by having our children engaged, having them grow both in mind and spirit, sets the stage for success in the rest of life. Funding education is probably one of the most important, if not the most important, responsibilities of our government, and we try to do it with an eye towards the taxpayer, but also towards the needs of the school district. So I'm not going to own the previous 4 years, I'm just going to own the 6 years, but I can say we're going to continue that commitment going forward. But we also need to look at the way we do business. There are opportunities for savings, whether it be through insurance, pooling our insurance, and I think it's time that we started talking about getting our city employees, our police officers and firefighters, and our teachers all on the same health care plan, because by doing that, we can cash in on economies of scale, put all of that out to bid, and be able to save significant amount of money that way. And there's other areas that I think are right for us to look at in terms of being able to maximize dollars. Just recently, I know that Dr. Pasquarella and Ilio Longo put in a competitive bid process in our school district at my request, because for years we didn't bid any of our services or goods. And so what would happen is that we would take a sole source bidder. Well, it's a good thing to put stuff out to bid. You end up driving down costs and saving money. So those are the kinds of things that we can do working together as a team to be able to find every nickel, which is crucial in this business. It's absolutely critical.
It's interesting that you said you just want to own the last 6 years, but it's funny because during the prior administration, you're claiming we had such a low increase for the educational system, but we also built a new science wing at Danbury High School. We also built a new track and field at Danbury High School. We also added the new auditorium to Danbury High School. We built the magnet school. We also did all of the work with Roberts Avenue School, which you were able to complete during your time now, but that was all bonded out and all proposed during the prior administration's tenure. We also, during that time that I was on the council, evaluated and looked over the insurance programs within the Board of Ed, and they were able to get some serious deductions and save money, quite a bit of money for the Board of Ed, and they were able to use that money in the school system itself. It's very important to increase the budget for the schools, and no one knows that better than me. I have 2 children that graduated for the school system. They are products of that school system. You made a claim, Mr. McGowan, that our school system in Danbury is not a good school system. I strongly disagree with you, because I have 2 children that graduated from Danbury High School through an AP program, an honors program. They got full credit in college for those classes, and they're on the dean's list right now in the honors program graduating from college. So I really disagree with you tremendously. We do have to promote the budget. We do have to do what we need to do to give our children that education. And my goal is to do whatever I can to get any possible means, whether it's business-wise, whether it's statewide, to get that funding to promote education within the city. I'm very concerned. We have 2,152 multifamily houses going up on the west side. Where are those students going? Where are those students going? We don't have the infrastructure for those students. When the 500 units go downtown on Main Street that PRT is building, where our students or children that go into those buildings going to go to school? We don't have the capacity. The Savin report is claiming that we are going to be over capacity within a short period of time. We don't have the facilities, and we're using up all of our land to build another school system for our children. So we have to take what we have and move forward.
Thank you very much. This will conclude our pre-written questions on the mayoral candidates. They will have an opportunity to answer questions when we do questions from the audience after the Board of Ed piece. I want to give each one of the mayoral candidates a few minutes each to sum up your educational positions. And Mayor Boughton, we will begin with you.
Well, as I started out, I want to thank all of you very much for allowing me to be here tonight to participate in this discussion. Before I begin, I have to correct the record. Roberts Avenue School was bonded under this administration. The magnet school was built under this administration after I went to the legislature and wrote a special act to force them to build the school here. So you can't just talk about a project. That's one thing. Completing and executing a project is completely different. And my administration's been about less talk and more action. And so when it comes to education, we have led the way. This room that we're sitting in here, this building that we're sitting in here, just completed $7 million of renovations. Broadview Middle School just went through $7 million of renovations. All of those projects were talked about in previous administrations, but were done in this administration. And that's true not just in the school system, but throughout any of the capital projects throughout the city. Whether it's a firehouse on the west side, or whether it's a police station or a parking garage downtown, those projects were only talked about, they were executed by this administration. And let me just say that funding schools and creating a quality education for our children has been a hallmark of this administration. I spend nearly every week in one building throughout our city, talking to parents, talking to educators, talking to administrators, understanding what our challenges are, what our needs are, and how we best can meet them. I clearly understand the challenges that our staff have, and I tell you, working as a staff member at Danbury High School, that I work with some of the best educators and best professionals that I've ever met in my life. I understand the challenges that the Board of Ed goes through as they seek to balance the needs of the district along with the needs of the taxpayer, which is always a difficult task for them to do. So I understand the comprehensive approach to what we do. But I'm going to emphasize clearly that we must develop a strategic plan going forward in terms of our facilities, in terms of our maintenance, in terms of our custodial services, in terms of a whole host of issues that we'll need to look at. And it's clear that we have just at the very beginning of that process. The Savin report is not one draft. It's a comprehensive report. I'd actually like to pay for the report before we see it, which we haven't even done yet. And once we get that report that'll look at all those issues, we'll have a community discussion in which I'd like to see the people in this room engaged in to develop a strategic plan so that we know where we need to be in 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years going forward in the future. Educating our children is one of the most important things that we can do in this community. I'm committed to it. I'm excited to be your mayor, and I'm excited to participate in their education. Thank you.
It's interesting because that vision and that design was presented during my time when I was on the council, because we saw the plans for the magnet school and the Roberts Avenue School, and the agreement had already started with regards to WestCon getting those buildings. But that's fine. We've done some phenomenal work within the city. We've done some tremendous work within our school system, and we have moved forward, and we need to move forward. Mayor, I'll give you credit. You did a great job with the firehouse, and you're moving forward on the police station, which is critical. You deserve congratulations for that. Education, to me, is one of the most critical things that we have to provide our children within the city of Danbury. It is something that I will work tremendously hard to obtain any type of funding that is available out there to promote and to move forward our city. We do have to look at our city. I was part of one of the individuals, along with some of the members of the public that's out there right now, that worked on a long-range facility study. When we went through every single school within the city, and it was very upsetting when I went into those school systems and I saw children having classes inside of a closet. which is absolutely ridiculous. There is no reason why children should be educated in a closet. One of the biggest problems is we're required now to teach a lot of special programs for autistic children, which is wonderful. We have a phenomenal staff in our school systems, but it's occupying different classrooms, and so we have so many students within the city of Danbury. We are not being provided that funding to help remedy some of the costs and some of the expenses and some of the space that we need. The Savin report I did read talks about some mobile classrooms, and we're going to need to move forward with some type of a program like that, because I've walked down the halls of Danbury High School, and you literally cannot move in one direction to the other during the time that the bell rings, because God forbid you try to go in the opposite direction, you'll get knocked over or stepped on because there's so many students in that school. You have to wait till you get to the end, and those students don't have very much time to go to their classrooms. They have an allotted amount of time to move from one place to the other, and something has to be done, and a serious evaluation needs to be done with our school system. It hasn't been necessarily done up to this point. That long-range facility review that we did was critical, and we gave some serious recommendations to the city to move in a different direction. And I would hope that some of those proposals that we made are implemented and move forward, because we are in a critical stage in the city. And when the rest of these developments go up and these homes go up, we don't have the capacity for our children.
I commend our educators for doing what they can with everything they're provided. I have no doubt they're doing a good job. But 10 years ago, these similar topics were being talked about, along with 20 and 30 years ago, because I can remember them being talked about as a kid by my own parents. Now, over the 30 years, the problems haven't gotten better. They've gotten bigger and worse, and with a little couple twists in between, but they're all still the same. Now, if you want to keep doing this and you want to keep discussing these same issues 10 or 15, 20 years from now, keep doing what you're doing, because you're going to be having the same problems. I suggest getting away from what the federal government recommends you do with your kids, getting away from the state, looking privately into creative solutions, not necessarily what's coming right out of Hartford or Washington, D.C. It's time to stop business as usual and look elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we move on to the Board of Education candidate part of our forum, we want to give the members in the audience an opportunity to ask questions, and this is how this will work. If you have a question you would like asked this evening, please raise your hand, and members of Citywide PTO will bring you an index card and a pencil and ask you to write it down. When you are done forming your question, if you will again put up your hand, they will come and collect them. And at the end of the actual pre-written questions, if there is time allowed, we will do as many questions from the audience as possible. We're going to begin tonight's Board of Education candidates with those candidates that have not been on the Board of Education in the last term. Judy Coco, Joseph Scazafaza. Our questions to you: why do you want to be on the Board of Education, and what qualifications or background do you possess which qualify you to be a candidate for the Board of Education? Ms. Coco?
Didn't have to be ladies first. Thank you, Janice and Jennifer and the PTO for hosting this evening, and thank all of you for coming out this evening. I appreciate, to be talking to a group of people that are interested in the future for our kids. Why do I want to be a member of the Board of Ed? Kids are important to me, and I want to tell you a little bit about myself, and then you'll have a greater appreciation for why I say that. I know a few of you are out there that know me and know how my kids are my priority, mentoring my mentee is my priority, and all my extracurricular activity. You want to say something? Anyhow, I've been living in Danbury for 19 years now. I moved up here from Texas with Union Carbide, at the time Union Carbide, now Praxair. I've been with Praxair 26 years, and education in the business sense, has been my focus in work for the past 16 years of 26 years. My husband and I moved up to the northwest side of Danbury and are raising two boys. Alex, who's soon to be 13 and is going to Broadview, 8th grade at Broadview, and Evan, who tomorrow will be hitting double digits and is going to King Street, a 5th grader at King Street. You know, education is important to them because it's something that I've promoted with them, as well as I am a very active member in the DSABC program where I've been mentoring a young gentleman for the past 17 years, and I'm proud to say that he has gone on to Danbury High School. We were worried for a while, but I am excited and glad that he's moved on to the high school. My extracurricular activities also reinforce the importance that I place on education and children in the community. I have been the chairperson, well, I'm currently the chairperson of the Danbury Youth Commission, and I've been on the commission for about 5 years, looking for ways to take the needs of youth and create some action. Our recent project was, you know, kids were telling us, we don't know what's going on in Danbury for youth, so we created a website for our kids to go on and find out what's going on in the Danbury community for me. What can I do this weekend? What can I do in the evenings? I'm also very active in the Danbury Youth Services. Danbury Youth Services, Cub Scouts, and Religious School. Why do I want to be on the Board of Education? Because education is important to me, kids are important to me, I want to give back to the community, and I have a stake in the outcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Strazza, same questions?
Good afternoon. Thank the board, PTO and the members of the community for coming tonight. I'm very proud to be here again. People that don't know me, I've lived in the city all my life. My father was born here. I've been born here. Both my daughters went to school here. My wife taught in the Danbury system, as well as in Fairfield, which is now retired. I was very, very interested. I've served both on the board and the council, and I know exactly how the system works. It's a kind of a waltz between the superintendent and the school board and the mayor and the common council on funding. I think the big question here was how we're going to fund. I think you wanted to know why. I think I've been there. I know how this works. I see my former board chairman, Mrs. Baker, out there staring at me. She used to kick me under the table when I say something wrong. I see other board members that I serve with and our present board members and council people I serve with, and it's a very, very important job. Our product is an educated child. We get a child in kindergarten and we graduate him or her in the high school, and our job is to make sure that child, that young adult who came in as a child, is an educated person who can go on to either college if that's what they want, and I understand that 85% of our high school students do, and that's where we're a success. I think we've come a long way. I've been on the council and the board when we had a lot of problems. I don't see the problems we have now that we had then. We solved them. Kindergarten was one of them. That was our main priority, to get all-day kindergarten. We have a chance now. We really have a chance with the new building of the Emmanuel School that we're bringing a Head Start into. We'll open the buildings up for our kindergarten students. My grandma used to say to me, said, you can't straighten a tree when it gets old. And we found that out when we were on the council, that when you find out problems when the kids are young, the children are young, it saves them and it saves the system, and everybody around is happy, and it's working. It's working. We used to have a big dropout rate at 16, Mrs. Baker knows, but I think it's pretty much under control now. I think we can still do that. Thank you.
These next questions are for our existing school board members, and I'd like to just go down from the left to right, make it simple for me. So, Mr. Fox and the rest of the candidates, How do you feel you have contributed to the Board of Education during your term in office, and what do you hope to achieve?
Thank you. And I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. By way of introduction, I've been on the school board about a year. I filled a vacancy almost exactly a year ago. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but the last year has been very educational for me. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised, went through the New York public schools, son of a retired New York City public school teacher, went through the State University of New York at Buffalo, moved with my wife to Danbury in 1994, so we've been here about 13 years. We now have 4 children, and all 4 of them are in the Danbury schools. I'm very proud to say that they're in the Danbury public schools. The experiences we've had so far have been very exceptional, and I'm very proud to have them in the public schools. I have a 5th grader, Ryan, who's in the audience. He's a 5th grader at King Street. I have a 3rd grader, Bradley, who's across the street playing football. He's also at King Street Intermediate. And I have my twins, Adam and Valerie, who just started kindergarten at King Street Primary. So I'm, like Mrs. Coco, very involved in the school system on a day-to-day basis. Prior to me joining the board, I thought I knew everything about what was going on in the schools. But once I started this second job a year ago, I got a rude awakening. And it's been a labor of love for me over the past year, attending every regular board meeting, most committee meetings, even committees that I'm not a member of. I try to make it a point to attend all of them to just get an education as to what's going on so that I can help the board or work with the board to make better decisions for the community. So it's been many hours of an education this first year for me. I've also been the board's PTO liaison to Stavley Ruff and to Pembroke. So in addition to knowing what's going on at King Street, I'm fortunate to know what's going on at Stavley Ruff and Pembroke as well. Attended those PTO meetings on a very regular basis, really projecting what's going on with the board out to the community. And I think that's something I look forward to doing in the years ahead, to try and increase parental involvement as much as possible. Because in my mind, parental involvement is very important in the success of educating children. For as much time as they're in school, they're also at home, and I think that experience and getting the parents involved is very important to me, and that's why I found the experiences at the PTO is very rewarding as well. Okay, I'll wrap it up by saying, in addition to those regular occurrences, try to attend every public event as possible to get a full understanding of what goes on, whether it's graduations or attending the high school college fair, which happened yesterday, to attending the adult ed graduation, which it's one of the programs we don't publicize much, but it's one that I found after attending that ceremony saves hundreds of children every year in terms of taking people who society would not have felt would have succeeded and getting them that chance to get ahead in life. So to sum it up, I'm very proud of what the Danbury Public Schools have to offer, and I look forward immensely at the next 4 years if you so choose. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Dr. Alaska?
Yes, I want to thank everyone, the PTO especially, for inviting me to be with you this evening, and I appreciate the turnout. Unfortunately, I did not have any children in the Danbury school system, nor in the Connecticut school system. I myself am a product of the New York school system, whatever that may be, as in comparison to Danbury, but I am a product of that school system. My children have all gone through school systems, and 2 of them are physicians. One is a teacher who's married to a teacher. My son-in-law, who teaches here, is also married to my daughter, who is a human resource specialist, and if I may say so, works for the city. And I have another son who's graduated, gone through college, and is now has his own executive search firm. So I'm familiar with school systems. I myself, as you know, have been through the school system, becoming a professional, and I thank my teachers, my wife, and my parents for being what I am. I have been on the board for 2 months. Amazing what I learned. Amazing how much more I have to learn. And I think it's going to take me the next 4 years to learn if I am elected. I will try and do my best. I will, as Mr. Fox said, will try and attend every meeting. I will try and visit every school. I will try and talk to every teacher. I also would like to encourage parents at PTO meetings to become involved, to attend board meetings, to voice their opinions, and to allow the process to go on as a very successful process as the school system has been in Danbury, which I am finding out. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alaska. Up to the other side, Mr. Hayel.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for permitting us to speak before you this evening. I guess I wanted to start by kind of parroting what Irving Fox had said, that public participation is key to this process of educating our children. And I guess simply stated, that's why I'm here. And I think I can speak for most of the rest of the board. That's why we're all here. And that's why you're here this evening as well, because of your interest in, in a common goal. Like Dr. Alaska, I've been on the board for a short period, and I guess to describe my experience, it's been brief but rich. And I think the most profound thought that I take back is the interaction with the board has been exemplary. The Democrats, the Republicans, we act as one. We have lively and active debate. We discuss issues. But I'll tell you, this is a professional group, and these are very caring individuals. I've been very proud in my short time to serve with them, and all of them. And I am here tonight to ask for consideration to be elected for another term, so that I can do just that, is to work with these people to enrich our community and work for the betterment of the children in Danbury. In terms of what I hope to achieve as a board member, again, I'm still in a learning phase. In 6 months, I've learned a lot, but obviously some board members have been on the board for 8, 10 years or more, and I have a long way to go before I ever, I can't call myself a veteran at this point, as they can. But two issues that stand out to me, things that I'd like to achieve, as a board member, is number one, exploring the school uniform, implementation of school uniforms in the Danbury schools, especially in the high school and possibly the middle schools. And I understand it to be a challenging issue. People have various opinions, and some quite potent. But I think it's something worth exploring as a board member. It's something I'm going to take an active role in doing. Secondly, we have a space issue in Danbury, especially in the high school. I think we're at over 100% of capacity now, if I understand the statistics correctly. The middle schools also are overflowing, and the administration, led by Dr. Sal, we've been exploring the creation of a high school freshman annex. We also have been talking about the STEM academies for the middle schools as ways to enrich the children's education and also solve the space issues as we grow. And again, those are the two main issues that I want to work towards as a board member if I'm re-elected. And again, I thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. I'd just like to remind our candidates tonight that we do have a 2-minute time limit for answers. And we have one of our citywide members in the audience with a white card. If you see her put it up in the air, that means time. So thank you. Gladys Cooper.
Good evening. My name is Gladys Cooper. First of all, I would like to thank Citywide PTO for having this forum tonight. I will start again. My name is Gladys Cooper. I have resided in Danbury for 37 years. My son is a part of the Danbury school system. I was a mentor in the school system for 12 years. I have served in all capacity of office on the Board of Ed. I have served on all committees on the board, including negotiations, superintendent evaluation, secretary, custodian, community relations, finance, and others. I have been a member of New Hope Baptist Church for 35 years. I was youth advisor for 16 years, working with students ages 11 to 17. All of that I love, all of that I have enjoyed. Sometimes I ask myself, when do I sleep? But in between times, I get my rest. What have I contributed during my tenure on the board? I was very instrumental in asking and working with the superintendent at that particular time. We have student representatives on the board, and Danbury High School was always present. And I feel like if you're going to be a part of the community, you include everyone. So I went up to the superintendent at that particular time, and I think I've been under 4 superintendents now, so I can't remember exactly who it was at that particular time. I asked, is it all possible that we could have representatives from the Alternative Center for Excellence come and give us their version of what's going on at that school. So therefore, we had the version from the Alternative Center for Education and DHS. So, you know, that worked out fine. What do I think that I would like to achieve if I'm elected to serve 4 more years on the board? I hope that all children, once they leave our Danbury Public School, will be equipped with the educational knowledge that they need to go out into the world to get the particular job that they want, or maybe they're not going into any type of field. You know, sometimes when young people graduate from school, they might need a year off to sort of get themselves together and understand what's the next route. So I'm praying and hoping that when our young people graduate from high school, they will be equipped to face those things that you and I know that are out there waiting for us. So, you know, that's one of the goals of mine. The Board of Education, I know what my role is on the Board of Ed. I know that the Board of Ed is a policy-making board. There's one thing that I do know that we do. We hire the superintendent of school, okay? And to me, that's one of the biggest things that this board can put together. So I'm just going to leave with that at this time.
Thank you. Mrs. Gianni?
I think you're a very brave lady for telling Mrs. Cooper to cut her speech short, because I've tried it at board meetings and I caught a lot of help. But I'd like to say thank you, everybody, for inviting me here. My name is Richard Gianelli. I'm new to the board. I filled the vacancy about a year ago. I'm a product of the New York City environment. I graduated Baruch School of Business. I moved here in 1965. I've raised 3 children in Danbury. They went through the Danbury school system and went on to attend higher education. So I'm proud to say I have one of my children here tonight. He flew in from the island of Kauai to cheer me on, so I'm very happy about that. Former student of Mayor Boughton, who claims he was infamous in the school district, but or famous, we haven't figured out. My first year here has been a learning curve. It's a tremendous, tremendous job. Being a business person and not an academic person, it's very difficult. I do a lot of research in programs such as finding out what the pros and cons are, No Child Left Behind, the Columbia Reading Model. I've joined the boards for Danbury Children's First, which I'm the chairman of the Finance Committee for, as well as chairman of the Finance Committee on the Board of Education. I'm also board members of the Family Networks of Western Connecticut, Finance Committee there. I'm on a board for the DSABC, treasurer there, and also on a board member for Education Connection. I've joined all these boards only because they have a synergism with education and with children. So for me, all of this is a tremendous, tremendous learning curve. I'm proud to serve, and to Jeff's point, and I love that phrase, is to say that we have an incredible board. We are not running for any office in terms of any political office. There's no politics in what we do. We have a volunteer job. We work tremendously hard, and we look to do the best thing for the kids, for the education in the district of Danbury. I'm a very strong advocate of PTOs, and what I'd like to do is to see that every child in the Danbury school system is trained and educated to have 21st century skills. Thank you.
At this time, we have some questions to ask our school board candidates, and it's not going to be the same question all the way down, so we'll just randomly move the questions around. I think I'd like to start with Mr. Scazavava and ask what measures can the Board of Education take to ensure regular upgrades to the building and school facilities?
When I was on the board, I was chairman of the, thanks to Mrs. Baker, one of the Support Services Committee, which was in charge of all the maintenance and the upkeep in the building of new facilities. I'm proud to say that we did sit down and was part of the high school and other renovations at the time. I think your question was, how do we keep up with it? Well, our biggest problem was maintenance. It's a lot cheaper to maintain a air conditioner. We don't have them in schools, I think Millridge does. But the heating system and other facilities parts, if you maintain a filter, it's easier to change a filter than it is to change a furnace. We found that it's very expensive. We had a big problem at Moore Street School one time, basically from poor maintenance. That was a big item that we have to maintain. It's a lot cheaper to maintain our equipment than it is to replace it. Is that part of your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fox, Board of Education members are assigned to each of the individual school PTOs. As a board member, how do you plan to create a presence and broaden the communication between the board and the parent-teacher organizations?
Thank you very much. To answer this question, I'll go back to what I said earlier in my introduction. Over the past year, I've been the board's PTO liaison to the Stadley Rough and to the Pembroke schools. As part of that liaison, I've tried to convey a presence of the board of what's happening within the district, trying to communicate what the direction of the district is and what's been happening at regular board meetings and what's going to be coming up. As well as addressing the parents' concerns about what's happening at the schools. Again, our role really isn't to circumvent any other authority in terms of resolving disputes, but as I said before, it's really to communicate what's going on and to encourage parental involvement. One of the things that I've noticed over the past year attending these PTOs is that attendance of the PTOs relative to the percentage of population in the schools is pretty low. And so one of my priorities would be to increase the participation in the local PTOs, to get more parents involved, to get them active. A lot of times what happens is when certain activities can't be funded by the regular budget, the PTO steps in. I've seen that at Stadley Rough and at Pembroke, where the PTO has fundraising efforts, which if they were more successful would lead to more supplemental programs. An example at King Street, we just instituted with the help of some of the people in the audience who came from King Street, a program to give foreign language instruction to some of our kids at King Street, and that was worked out through the PTO there. To the extent we can increase parental involvement across the city and it doesn't necessarily mean monetary support, but just parents stepping in and getting involved, I think that will benefit all of our kids going forward. And so relative to this question, my hope is to encourage that involvement over the next 4-year term. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Alasko, how will you propose to address the issue of school overcrowding, especially in secondary schools?
The school overcrowding is a problem, and to address it would involve, I guess, a great expertise. But one of the things that we can do is take advantage of the areas that are available in the community, in the district, that are not being used for other purposes. We would have to build, it's not necessary to build because building is actually a city problem that can involve the Board of Ed, but we would have to take rooms that are not used for other purposes. We would have to take rooms that have been closed for various reasons, such as at the high school, because of a sprinkler system, so some classes cannot be used, but once those classes are opened up, we can utilize those areas. We can utilize areas where children are being moved out, such as the Head Start program. When those classes are emptied, we can then move children into those areas and utilize those spaces to relieve the overcrowding in the classrooms.
Thank you, Mr. Nebraska. Judy, what do you see as the school budgetary priorities?
I don't know. But I think, well, what I would do is take my experience at Praxair when we look at business processes and problems that we have and say, well, what do we want the end state to be? What do we want? And in this case, we want to have kids that grow up and be self-sustaining. We want to give our kids all the opportunities that we can give them, and so that they can be contributing to society when they graduate from school. So I would treat it like a business problem, say, what's the end state? And I'd work backwards from there. And once I understand what do we have to do in the high school to achieve the desired end state, what do we have to do in the middle school to get them prepared for high school, and then what do we have to do in the elementary school to prepare them for middle school, I'd start saying, okay, let's look at all these issues and things we have to do and start to prioritize. What's going to give us the greatest bang or greatest impact for our kids? And again, it would be like a work process. And that's how I would look at the priorities and then decide what the budget needs to be, or budgetary priorities need to be.
Thank you, Ms. Coker. I just want to make sure I'm saying Mr. Hayel's name correctly? Hayel. I'm very sorry.
I respond to
Okay. People say my name wrong a lot, so I hope you don't mind. With the escalating cost of regular and special education and the continued decline in the state's share of these costs, how can the Danbury Public Schools adequately fund mandates and programs which have been previously funded under grants? For example, the after-school programs.
Well, again, I think we've touched on some of these issues tonight, and I think just to cite some basic prudent business management, cost containment, cost controls, prudent fiscal management by our esteemed administrators. I think they do, an outstanding job in my limited time on the board. I think coordination with the city and the mayor and the city council, and especially in light of the expansion and growth that the schools are going to go through to address the space allocation issues in the very near future. That's going to become a reality. In fact, we as one of the candidates said earlier, that we have to balance the needs of the children with the needs of the taxpayer. And that's a daunting task at the least in any community, especially when you're facing significant capital projects and expansion. I think, I guess most notably is, from my experience on the board, has been the board's ability to put together a 5-year plan involving curriculum, site facilities planning, the growth, as I mentioned earlier. I think it's unprecedented in the board's history. This is the first 5-year plan that's ever been presented and hopefully implemented, under my tenure. And I think that that's something that the board is going to discuss openly with the public in the near future, so that you can give us some feedback, once we get through the campaign season here. So again, prudent fiscal management by the administration, the board actively making good policy and working with administrators, working with the mayor, working with the city to manage this growth. I think that's my answer.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cooper, each year we as parents hear from both students and teachers that there are not enough instructional materials in our classrooms. With over 80% of the budget, the approved budget, going to salaries and benefits, how are you going to address this need for books and supplies with this inequity in funding?
Again, I would just answer this by, I think the individuals need to, and I like the chain of command. We have a superintendent who's running our schools, our teachers who are providing supplies to their particular classroom need to speak to the principal, let that principal know what's going on to the school. Well, then that principal will in turn talk to the superintendent, and then the superintendent and his cabinet will come up with some type of plan that the supplies or whatever need is in place for that particular school. I don't like going outside of the chain of command because I feel that you break down communication by doing that. You lead people to the chain of command, then at some particular point, the superintendent will sit down with us as a board and the finance director and tell us what would be the next step to go.
Thank you. Mr. Ginelli, one of the greatest challenges in increasing school performance levels is the partnership between teachers and parents and parental participation. It is easy to place this responsibility upon the teacher, but what will you and the Board of Education do to actively promote this partnership?
I think it's incorrect to think that a teacher should be the only person involved in the education of a child. I'm a strong advocate of a phrase, I don't know where it came from, that it takes a village to raise a child. And with that, I say it takes the parent, it takes the teachers, it takes the business community, all involved in one common theme to raise the educational level of the students. The PTO is a tremendous influence on this particular issue. And we have to support and encourage the parents, and we have to give them all the resources that are necessary in order for them to understand what assets they have in the school district and working as a team. And that's the true thing that we're looking to do here, is a team. It's no one person's individual responsibility, no one person can do it, but it's a collaborative effort of everybody involved working as hard as they can through the ultimate end of raising and educating the children, in particularly our school district and any school district, whether it be in Danbury or in Connecticut or the rest of the country.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank everybody for submitting all of the questions. There was far too many. We could be here until midnight to answer them all. But what we did is we took them and put them by group, and so I'm going to address, and we'll start right down the line here, 4 questions, a sampling of what was submitted from the audience. Mr. Scazavaza, parent participation is a key part of student success. How will you hold the present administration accountable for ensuring that all parents will have a comfort level that will maximize their involvement in the educational process?
You mean the mayoral administration, not the school board administration?
I believe this is talking about it says the present administration. It did not delineate between the mayoral or the Board of Education,
Well,
but I think the question is about the
the
parent
administration of the city. As I mentioned before, it's a delicate process of between the superintendent and the mayor and the common council and the board to negotiate and work together and get participation in both the schools and city projects. I found out in my tenure, the only time we really get real parent participation is when there's something amiss, when there's a problem. I've been to a meeting right in this room when the common council was up here and the parents were out there in full force because they were going to cut the budget, which was great. I was on the school board at the time. Unfortunately, we've got to get the parents involved in everyday process. When I was on there, my school was King Street. King Street was very, very active in the PTO and other activities, and some schools aren't. But we have to get them going, and I think the administration has done well. And you know why? Because they have not caused a controversy. We have not got we have got a 5% increase, as the mayor has said. That's 2% over inflation. How much more can we get? I mean, do we need more? Sure, we could use more money, but where are we going to get it? We have to live in our budget, and we have to deal with what we got. We have to conserve. We've done very well with 5%. Well, let's see if we can get more. We'll try. I think the state said they're going to do better. And without that, we have to get parent participation with the administration without controversy. How? We'll have to work with the administration to find out.
Thank you. Mr. Fox, there are serious health issues at the schools due to dust, mold, and mildew. How quickly will you address these problems?
Well, fortunately, we have programs in place and that will continue to take place to address air quality type problems. Over the past 6 months, we've entered into an agreement with Honeywell, which again maintains our infrastructure, will be providing more security. And another component of that is air quality testing and remediation. And so these agreements come up every year or two, and as they're phased in, we hope to expand the air quality program. I think the current program affords for half the schools being tested more rigorously in alternating years. And I think going forward, we'll want to expand such a program to make sure that's done more often. But there is work in place with our current agreements to foster better air quality in the school system. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Alasko, with the cost of gasoline and oil skyrocketing, how will you find the money to pay for textbooks, technology, and other educational needs?
We actually can start our own funding by establishing foundations whereby we can elicit some monies. We can also, as was suggested, attempt to contact corporations to sort of adopt us. We can try cutting costs by eliminating items that are really not essential. We can also, by taking supplies, we can't replace supplies all at one time. It must be done piecemeal. We must replace the textbooks and materials that are outdated in one area and replace those, and then the following year replace materials and texts that are going out of style for that year. There probably are many other ways which I really can't think of at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Coco, how will you solve the overcrowding at the high school and at the middle schools?
Again, I think I first have to get onto the board and understand what are the issues, what's causing the overcrowding other than the obvious, and look for solutions, look for creative ways to, Mayor spoke about some of the classrooms that we're going to recapture and some of the adjustments that we're going to make, and maybe there are other ways. Maybe there's different ways of educating our kids. Maybe there's different resources out there. Maybe there's, working with some of the businesses. There's some office space. I don't know what I don't know yet. And once I get on the board and really understand the issues, then I would be in a better position to be able to answer that question.
Thank you. Mayor Boughton, what considerations for education were discussed during the approvals of the West Side development and the downtown condominium projects?
Well, I think the considerations were that the student population is driven by the kind of development you have. For example, on the west side, if we had allowed, for example, 4-bedroom homes, you would have many children generated out of there. What we did is went back and we did an analysis, and we looked at older condominium units that have been here a long time, and then newer condominium units, and then we counted the kids that they were generating for the school district. And what we found is in some cases where there were over 200 units, we only had 5 or 6 kids that were generated from there because it's the kind of unit you have. Families are not going to move into a 2-bedroom condominium, but they are going to move into 4-bedroom homes and colonial homes and those styles of building. So that has a tremendous impact. And where you see that is a town like Newtown, which has struggled with overcrowding issues because all they built there is 4-bedroom colonials, and they've generated a lot of kids that end up costing a lot in terms of education. I would also, just want to say that in terms of space in general, what we have to look at is we have to look at how our buildings are used in two ways. One, through our public buildings, and what we see in our preliminary studies is that some of our elementary schools, in terms of their space utilization, they're only utilizing about 40% of the space. That's not good, and it's not a good return on our investment in that particular building. We have other schools, particularly in our urban core, places like Morris Street, Park Avenue, South Street, that are utilizing almost all of their space in there. So where we're seeing a tremendous amount of growth are in our urban core neighborhoods and not so much growth on the outskirts of the city. The second piece to that is looking at, and Judy actually touched on it a little bit, is looking at some of our corporate buildings that, for example, are not in use anymore or potentially mothballed, and look at bringing them back out and using the flex space that's in there in a different and new and creative way. The goal that we should really work towards is breaking kids into smaller groups. We know educationally that that works. And we have to recognize, too, that we're not going to build tomorrow a $50 or $60 million middle school or $100 million high school, because by the time we turn the shovel, it's 7 years between the state approvals and our local approvals for us to get that. But we can act quick, we can act fast, and we can act responsibly by looking at different types of buildings and modifying them to accommodate kids and to modifying programs. The old schools are gone. The Danbury High Schools are a wonderful institution, but that's not where our educational success is in the 21st century. Our new schools will be about programming, elongating the day, having a longer day, more contact time with the kids. That's how we address overcrowding, because as we pull off kids into these facilities, we don't have as many kids congregating in one particular area. I'll also just want to mention to you, you got to also go back and look at the numbers. This year, Danbury High School is down 47 kids, in spite of everything that you've heard. At our elementary level, we're down from where we were 10 years ago. But our programming has increased and our space needs has increased, and that's where our pressure points are and what we need to address.
Thank you. Mrs. Abrantes, for 10 years, both you and the mayor have claimed successes in raising spending from 3.4 to 5.4 per year for the education budget. If that's the case, where do you place blame for the current problems we face, and why should citizens expect it to be any different in the future?
Well, first of all, we've made some major improvements in the school system in the last 10 years to supply space for our students to live in. We need to move forward. We need to do what we need to do to provide that space for the students. We need to move in a different direction, and we need to use what we have out there to make that available to our students. It's not a matter of placing blame, it's a matter of moving forward at this point. We have to take the next step. We have to move forward. We have to get the funding. It's out there. We have the availability for that funding. We have the corporations. We have to bring the corporations back into Danbury so that they can help with our tax base and help promote and improve a lot of the facilities that we have. And that's a priority that I have and that I would like to do, and try to talk to some of these businesses and provide them with incentives to move back into Danbury. The corporate facilities, the corporate businesses bring a lot of money into our city and help promote education within our system. And that's what we need to do. We need to bring the corporate base back into the city of Danbury, which we've lost quite a bit. We brought in GE Capital, which brought in 200 jobs and provided an enormous tax base for the city to spend. Cardis, which was formerly Sendent Mobility, Belimo, tons, Mankind, all types of businesses that have brought in a lot of money that have helped maintain the funding for the Board of Education. That money has gone towards the school system. I would love to give everything to the school system that they want. It's not possible because of the tax base within the city. People can't afford to live within the city itself. And a lot of people that do have 2 children or 3 children can't afford to move into a ranch or to a colonial in Danbury because it's above their financial basis or their financial range of availability to move into those homes. We need affordable housing for these people to move into Danbury. We need to do something on a basis. I can't afford to buy a McMansion in Danbury. There's a lot of McMansions that are up for sale in Danbury. We need to do something. We need to be careful with the condominiums, and there are a lot of children that live in those condominiums and occupy the space. And yes, we can move forward, and we need to move forward, and I'll do whatever I can to help bring that tax base back into Danbury, to move it forward and not complain about anything, but move in a positive direction. And that's what I'd like to do.
Thank you. Mr. McGowan, what are your views on the challenges of NCLB, and how will you assist parents in meeting those challenges?
First of all, NCLB, in my opinion, is an unconstitutional act mandated by the federal government. Like I said earlier, the federal government has no constitutional authority over the educational department. And all it does is bring down the education system within this country. Let's face it, our nation used to have the education system that the world strived to live up to. Now worldwide, we're approximately number 17 or 18. We have to turn the clock back to what we used to be doing that made us number one, and stop trying this other programs that have already been proven not to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Heil, should any special consideration be given to graduates of Danbury schools when the school board is hiring personnel to staff our schools? Why or why not?
This is a good question for me. I didn't state it earlier, but I work as a civil rights attorney, specializing in employment law. So it's kind of a softball. But I didn't see the question. Yeah, when we toss it back. I thought you said toss it back, Mark. I'm sorry. Anyway, I guess my opinion is, as I would govern or counsel any client, that I like to see an open, transparent process for any position, for any job. I want to see the most qualified person in the job. I want the person that's interviewing that person and the decision maker to, again, base their decision strictly on the merits. I have no, it's an unqualified opinion. I don't deviate from it at all. It's unfortunately very complex, and it's why, I'm in business, because there are employers that do deviate from it, don't follow the different state and federal statutes. But I think for the most part, folks are good about that, both in the public and private sector. And so I guess my answer is, I don't think personally as a board member, any special consideration should be given to anyone for any reason other than what's allowed under law that the Congress or state of Connecticut legislature specifically designates by statute.
Thank you. Mrs. Cooper. It was mentioned this evening that there are after-school programs in the elementary schools. However, they do not exist in all elementary schools. How will you bring parity to the schools?
Okay. I think that, again, the party's in charge. I can't singly do it as a Board of Ed candidate. I think my mic is...
Maybe get rid of the mic.
I personally can't do this by myself as a board member, but I think I can, as a board, sit down with fellow board members, talk to our superintendent under his direction and leadership of all the parties that we need to include in this open discussion about how can we make this happen. I'm not sure at this point how we can go about doing that, because at some point in our schools where there's overcrowding and other type of issues that are going on, but again, we have leadership that we need to sit down around the table and have an open discussion about how we can accomplish this.
Thank you. Mr. Ginelli, closing the achievement gap is a catchphrase to a lot of people. However, many minority students live the horrible results for a lifetime if this is not done. What aspects are present now in this district that you believe best address this national issue?
I think what we've got to do is number one, is to determine how we measure the success of any of these tests. Currently, what we're doing is to create better tests so that we can measure the ability of students. We are focusing more on the needs of the particular student. And we have to rely basically on the administration, that is on the superintendents and his team, in order to come up with the academic curriculum to provide every student with the way to be educated. There is a problem, though. I mean, I have a certain ability, and you have a certain ability, and people should be measured by the progress they've made, not set a benchmark that you have to attain. It's impossible with me, with my IQ, whatever it is, to attain some benchmark created beyond my capability. But if I do show progress in things that I'm measured for, I should be rewarded for it and appreciated. So I think your question is something that's more of an academic question that is beyond my scope and ability in terms of doing that. But I feel that we need testing measurements in order to facilitate that and find out how we are going to address it. And that's what we're trying to do by changing the laws and the No Child Left Behind laws. I do want to say one thing, if I may be a little bit off, but as I'm sitting here at this table, along with everybody else, there's not a person on this table who hasn't shown that their best interest is in the educational success for the students of the city of Danbury. How we go about it may be a way that the top levels of the administration, who the mayor or the new candidates are, but including the current board members, excuse me, the new board members, and the new mayor candidates, etc. There's not a person here who doesn't feel that we do have the best interests of our kids at heart. As I said, we work as a team. How we go about doing it, that's the way to do it.
Thank you. This concludes our question and answer part of the program. In 1 minute or less, I'm going to give each Board of Education candidate the opportunity to best summarize how they can contribute to the success of the Danbury Public Schools, and we'll just go right down the line here. So Mr. Scazafaza, we'll start with you, and if you will just pass the mic along. Thank you.
Right. I have to agree with Mr. Gianelli. I think we're all here for the same purpose. I'm not going to come up here, I can do better than the other candidates. Les, I think we're all here for the same reason. I found out when I was on there that politics on the school board is out. After the election of the board chair and the other officers, there is no politics at all. We voice our own opinion. And I would have to say this, and I have to voice Mr. Gianelli, there's no one on this board that I wouldn't vote for. Unfortunately, not all of us can win. But we're lucky, very lucky, and I'm proud to be a member of this group.
Thank you. In closing, I'd just like to say the last year that I've been able to contribute to the board has been very educational for me. I think we're in an exciting time for the Danbury schools. Sure, we have many challenges, many significant challenges, but the momentum that we've built, especially over the last year, working together as a board, regardless of political affiliation, I think the current group that we have over the past year has worked very well together, but not just within the board, with the administration. The work that we've done with Dr. Pasquarella and the cabinet has been extraordinary over the past year. Our cooperation with the city as well to ensure that the schools have the funding that they need, whether it's at the magnet school or for the district in general, or whether it's problems plaguing our infrastructure and buildings. We've worked very well both within ourselves as a board, with the administration and with the city to build that momentum, and I'd like to continue that over the next 4 years, and that's all. Thank you.
Again, I would like to thank the PTO and all of you for the invitation to come and speak with you. In the 2 months that I've been on the board, I've always had respect for schools and the board, though I haven't known many. But this board really represents all the hard work that goes into running a school system. And together with the superintendent and with the assistant superintendents, this will really work. I would like to, though, make a plug for my own field. I would emphasize that a component of education is also to teach concepts of wellness and nutrition, integrating the mind, body, and spirit to optimize physical, social, and emotional health. It is also necessary to relay these concepts to parents so teaching would be an ongoing process and the student can become the teacher. Thank you.
Thank you again for giving all of us this opportunity to meet with you. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to being part of the school board and practicing in what I truly believe in, and that's the future of our kids, my own kids and the kids of Danbury. Again, I can't emphasize it enough. I think my passion for education and the impact of the fact that I have a stake in the results of the decisions I make says a lot for all of us. I think we all have a stake in it, and I think it's, again, I think it's a great opportunity for me to take some of the work that I've done in business, bring it to the board, as well as make a difference for the community of Danbury. Thank you.
Frankly, I didn't think I'd be running for office this fall. I didn't know what I'd be doing this fall, except for working. I'm also an educator. I'm an adjunct professor at the University of New Haven. I've had many good years there teaching. The mayor graciously asked me to fill in an interim capacity a vacancy in the board last year, actually earlier this year. And I kind of grew into the position. I grew very fond of the board members, without exception, the administrators who I've gotten to know. And again, this has been a brief but very rich experience for me. I am a product of the Danbury schools as well. Mill Ridge is my alma mater. Many of you know Levi Newsom. He's a very fine individual and a significant leader in the Danbury school system as a former principal at Mill Ridge and some other elementaries. And Robert Kuba, he's since passed, but he was my 4th grade teacher, and he was a very kind man and a fantastic educator. And these are people that have had an impact on my life as I've continued on my education into law school and seeking, getting my master's degree later on in life, and now teaching. And I guess why I'm here tonight is again to ask for your consideration in the selection so that I may continue for another 4 years this brief but rich experience on this wonderful board. And again, I thank you all for coming out tonight and supporting us, allowing us to speak our minds. Thank you.
I would like to certainly thank you all for coming out tonight. I have served on the board for 16 years. I don't claim to be so knowledgeable than my counterparts. I ask your support on November the 6th, and November the 16th is my birthday, so I'm sorry. So November the 6th, I ask for your support. I love what I have done over the 16 years. I believe that we have an excellent school system. I work with my colleagues well. I think we're all in a learning curve. I'm still learning after being on the board for 16 years. I do truly believe that we as a group must educate the entire child and make sure that we don't leave any child behind. Thank you.
I again thank everyone for coming and inviting me here. In the next year, I look to enhance my learning curve as to what I'm doing on a board. As Gladys said, she's been here for a considerable period of time, and it is a tremendous learning process. You're dealing with people that have PhD degrees in education, and here you are trying to make a decision on things that they bring forward to you. So it's a tremendous challenge to educate yourself to the curriculum, to the understanding, so that when you do make a vote, you make sure that the vote is a proper vote, and you're doing it with the best interest and the best knowledge and the best know-how. The most important thing for me is not the most important, one of the important things for me to do is to get the message across to the community, to get out there and however we do it, we're still struggling with this, is to tell them how great the Danbury school system is, what our accomplishments are, and also what our failures are, so that we can have more participation within the school, so we can have more participation in our board meetings. As I said before, it takes a village to raise a child, and this village is our community, everybody in this community. With that, I just want to say thank you again for allowing me to be here.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of our candidates this evening for coming out and for all of our participants in the audience. We really appreciate the questions, and unfortunately we don't have the time to ask them all, but maybe we can continue to address these issues and these questions at another time. We would like to conclude at this time and let you know we'll have a meet and greet out in the lobby, in the hallway. There's some refreshments and coffee. There's materials on the tables in the back if you'd like to pick some up regarding our candidates. And I want to thank